Okay, so the next two, I would say that two supplements you often see going hand in hand together would be glucosamine and chondroitin. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so glucosamine and chondroitin. Glucosamine in general is a sugar molecule, and it's extracted normally again from marine sources. Chondroitin is a component of cartilage and collagen that's normally extracted from mammalian sources, and the most common one is cow or beef trachea, windpipe,
Mhm.
cartilage there. So, what glucosamine and chondroitin claim to be and claim to do is that they're providing a raw ingredient for your dog of the type of molecules and the type of tissues that are needed by your dog to create and maintain healthy joints. So,
Mhm.
glucosamine is claiming to provide the raw ingredients for your dog to manufacture its own connective tissue and joint fluid, and the components of a healthy joint are given to your dog in raw form, in another form, and your dog kind of converts that into healthy joint tissue in its own body. And that
Yeah.
require and then chondroitin is basically a component of the kind of strong connective tissue like collagen and cartilage. And by giving that, it's providing the building blocks for your dog to manufacture and maintain or repair those structures in its own body itself. Now, if you think about that in simple terms of what the process must be for that to happen, we're asking the body to take in a raw ingredient, which is a food ingredient. It's from other animal tissues, and digest it through the stomach and the intestine, and assimilate that as molecules and kind of broken down nutrients in the bloodstream, and wrap it up in its own way and manufacture it into a dog tissue.
Mhm.
And some I guess skeptics of whether glucosamine and chondroitin work will say glucosamine and chondroitin are food molecules. There is no way that they're being converted, into they're being digested, so they're being absolutely destroyed. So you're throwing your money away by giving your dog an expensive supplement that they're just digesting, and the dog can manufacture its cartilage and its joint fluid and its collagen and its connective tissue in a joint from other elements within its diet by putting together different amino acids and putting together different compounds. Now, where it gets tricky is that actually there's been several studies looking into the effects of chondroitin and glucosamine, either in isolation or in conjunction, or sometimes there is a difficult thing, which had the effect, sometimes in conjunction with omega. Um,
Mm.
so we're trying to tease apart the difficulty with assessing whether this is efficacious or not, is that we're sometimes assessing a mixed joint supplement. We're not teasing out the individual factors alone. There's two major studies when it comes to glucosamine, it's in particular. One of which said that actually the objective measures, so using things like force plates, how the dog is ambulating, how the dog is putting pressure on arthritic joints before and after giving a supplement of glucosamine, or when giving a supplement of glucosamine compared to a group of dogs that are given a placebo, just basically a pill that does nothing. So we're kind of comparing the two, and it's a blind controlled trial comparing the glucosamine supplement with the placebo. One study said that the objective and subjective scores of the subjective being assessing, kind of humans assessing how the dog is moving and what the quality of life and mobility is. One of them says that actually, yeah, there is a beneficial effect of supplementing glucosamine in the diet, and the other one said there wasn't. So there's again a bit of push and pull. It's not clear at the moment, with all the body of evidence that's out there, whether glucosamine alone will provide a clinical improvement in your dog's arthritis or clinical signs of arthritis, and whether chondroitin, the jury is a little bit even more on the side that we don't really think it does. But what we have found is that, and there may be what we call potentiation. So if you're giving an omega-3 fatty acid supplement alone without glucosamine and chondroitin, how good is that compared to a mixed supplement where we're also giving the dog those building blocks to repair and maintain its own joints? My position on it, having read all the evidence, is that it seems like there could be some benefit to giving glucosamine and chondroitin alongside an omega-3 fatty acid. And certainly what I would say categorically is there is no harm in giving glucosamine and chondroitin in a mixed joint supplement, which is good quality, as long as you're not really overdosing the dog, which can cause some issues with digestive upsets and so on. So my point of view is there is strong evidence in some respects that there could be a clinical benefit here. It's not fully proven because there's another very good study that contradicts that. But to err on the side of caution and to say, if we're going to choose a joint supplement and it's just omega fatty acids versus omega fatty acids plus glucosamine and chondroitin, or it's a diet designed for joint support that has glucosamine and chondroitin in, then kind of I'm erring on the side of, yeah, I'm for it.
Good. Good call. I like it. And people would like to leave this with like structure, you know, and in our world where we read like clinical stuff and know there's a big grey, it could have been very easy for you to have not said that. So thank you for saying that. That's something a little bit structural that people can take away as a gift. Okay, just a couple of questions. Any connection with glucosamine and raised liver enzymes for people that have got dogs that have got liver disease? Anything that you've read?
Again, it seems to be that unless you're really overdosing it or really overdoing it, then it's not going to cause any harm to your dog, even in dogs with liver issues. If you think that, again, every dog is different and every dog's liver condition is slightly different and affected by different things. So I think work with your vet. You could always scale it back. Again, there's different published therapeutic ranges of what the dosage should be. So you can always work down to minimal dosing, and if liver enzymes are an issue and they come back down, then maybe. But if your dog is not responding well to a joint supplement and their pancreatitis is flaring up or their liver is flaring up because they've got hepatic disease, then maybe that joint supplement isn't part of your arsenal of tools.
Fine. There's another question about loading periods. Is there strong evidence to suggest that's required?
From what I've seen and what I can remember reading, there does seem to be some kind of benefit to a loading dose. So normally they start with saying you're giving a double dose first for the first week or 2 weeks, and then you're dropping down to kind of a half or a normal dose. And there's some evidence to say that does bring quicker outcomes. Again, very hard to tease apart. If I did it for my dog just by giving them the single dose, would I see the same effect in 6 weeks' time? Maybe you would. There's a cynicism around that of you just want to do that to sell more product initially.
Yeah, I know. And I'm sorry, I've become a massive cynic. I used to just rock up at a vet locum and I'd use the supplement that chose to stock and I never questioned it. And now I sit back and go, oh my God, this world is really difficult. Okay, so let's move on to...
This is why, Hannah, this is why it's difficult to be a vet and to give... Sorry, I'll just...
I've got the dog game.
Do a little dance. This is why it's difficult to be a vet and not face criticism, because we're trying to work with an evidence-based approach that doesn't always have... There's gaps in it and there's difficulties. And we might say to one client, I want you to do a loading dose of 2 tablets twice a day for the first 3 weeks and then drop down. And that client is like, yeah, absolutely fine. That's perfect. And then they're doing some other things and they see a good result with their dog. And the next client that comes through and we ask them to do that, and maybe finances are a bit tight that month, they say, I didn't see any result from this supplement. And that has just robbed me because I had to pay 40 quid for a supplement that didn't work. And then it's like, oh, we've lost trust with that.
That's a really good point. I'm just going to mention that, is that sometimes I feel that I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. And I've had owners when I have chosen to exclude the supplements because finances are limited and I'm thinking I need to go in for the kill, I need to get results. And then they come back later and say, well, why didn't you offer me a supplement? You're like, oh, for God's sake. So sometimes being the vet that's trying to appeal to everybody's wishes and wants can be extraordinarily draining.
Yeah.
Okay, cracking on, because I'm worried I'm going to burn you out. And we've already been going for an hour. Let's move on.
we've only scratched the surface.
Have you got
Okay.
a picnic?
What's third then? So omega-3, glucosamine and chondroitin kind of go together. Shall we talk then about some of the more natural or herbal type things?
Yeah, you lead.
Okay, so turmeric.
Oh God, leave the room.
Turmeric is a really interesting one, actually, and I've just written a recipe book for dogs, which is also giving a lot of health advice and weight management advice and things about dogs. It's called the Happy Dog Cookbook.
And you're going to do a competition. It's going to be in the next couple of weeks where people can win a book.
All proceeds go to Street Vet, so I'm not plugging it for my own profit. I'm plugging it for Street Vet.
Perfect.
I wrote a book, and in it we did include things like turmeric and talked about their value for joint support in it. But I was very mindful and kind of serious about making claims in the book, and I said that this is the theory behind turmeric, but it doesn't really replace, it doesn't bear true. So any fans of turmeric out there, I think you may not like what I'm going to say, because actually the anti-inflammatory properties that have been investigated in turmeric and been reported on in turmeric are definitely from human studies and some lab animal studies. There are not the same studies done in dogs in terms of efficacy. But what the claims behind turmeric are in terms of anti-inflammatory or joint disease benefits are to do with a compound, mainly a compound called curcumin. And curcumin has been shown to have anti-inflammatory properties in humans. But we're not comparing like for like when we're talking about turmeric versus metacam, for example. There might be anti-inflammatory properties of a certain herbal compound found in a plant that are, proven, and they have anti-inflammatory properties, but that doesn't mean they're as effective in terms of their anti-inflammatory action as a compound found in nature that's been turned into a drug. This is something that actually we forget, that a lot of herbal remedies are effective and have been known for centuries and have been utilized for centuries by people and animals, self-medicating. But most of the ones that are truly effective or have a very potent effect have been turned into drugs. Most drugs are or have been herbal at one stage in their So there shouldn't be this divide or distrust that like drugs are bad, plants are good. If the herbal remedies were as good as the drugs, they would have been made into drugs.
Well, that's my thing, because I sit on the client because I got through vet school on a whim. I really didn't do very well, so I am not academic. So my brain always is gullible before it actually plugs in and goes, "Where's the other thing?" And I often think to myself, if something is so effective, some company would have picked up on it and they would be marketing it really quite well by now. So that is a really big general kind of just safety note to people. Just a couple of comments. James has said he had great results with turmeric for himself. There are a lot of people out there that talk about turmeric, and I find this area really difficult because there's also a cultural thing with turmeric as well. I know when I spent a little time over in India, it was a very big part of their culture and used a lot. What we're trying to do with tonight, guys, is we're not trying to diss things. No. We're trying to prepare you and give you basically the chance to choose wisely. But we're also saying, we've still got a lot to learn. Be objective. If you start using turmeric in your dog, don't accept that it's definitely going to work because the company told you would. Use it, be objective, and see if it's making a difference. If it hasn't, move on, try something else. So there are lots of people that say they see blinding results. Great, and I'm happy for you. But there are other people that don't see results, but they badge on because they believe that if everybody else is seeing results, they should do too.
Exactly.
Not on his dog. Yeah. So sorry, James, but this isn't supposed to be any way pointing fingers, shooting down other people. We want to be extremely open-minded and equip you to make good decisions for you and your dog. So carry on with turmeric.
That's it. So it's teasing apart like what's actually happening is difficult sometimes. And you know, to go to James there, like I'm not saying that turmeric hasn't achieved great results for him, but now I'm going to be controversial, but like we do need to talk about the placebo effect. And I'm not saying that James, you know, is a victim or a success story of the placebo effect, but the placebo effect is very powerful. And also what you've talked about, crowd speak, is very powerful. Turmeric has become a very trendy ingredient right now. You know, spirulina was a very trendy ingredient 10 years ago and making all sorts of health claims in human food arena. We just don't hear about it now. It's just become less trendy. Turmeric lattes and you know, all this kind of stuff are just super. That's what you're drinking right now, Hannah, yeah?
Turmeric and CBD.
Yeah. I just think we need to be mindful that actually the power of popping a pill, whatever that pill is actually an extremely powerful thing because it can shift the way we think about things. And the psychology behind this is fascinating. So I'm not bringing this up now to say, anyone who says that their pain is better because they're on turmeric is lying or is kind of definitely, you know, having the placebo effect or is just thinking about things differently. The power of the mind is working in different ways in lots of people. And we do, and also, before anyone gets annoyed, we do know that turmeric does have anti-inflammatory properties in humans. There's studies that say that. So actually, a combination of having some anti-inflammatory compound in your system, helping with that biological pharmacokinetic process going on, and taking something and taking back control over a painful chronic disease can actually reframe your mind into going, no, I am going to feel better about my disease. I'm going to play down the pain element. I'm going to do other things to manage it well in conjunction with this pill I'm now committed to taking. So,
and this placebo effect is really interesting. Okay, so I've been having really bad hip pain or toe dollars. Anyway, I recently bought these shoes, okay, to try and make sure that I place my feet correctly and it balances me out. And guess what? The next day I just felt amazing. And you kind of go, was it the £140 shoes, Hannah? And
when you've committed £140, it better be.
I know. I'm crazy lady. But we have to realise that it's everything you do. Even going to see the vet. If you've got a vet that you think is fantastic, you might have a crush on that vet. And you think, oh my God, they're wonderful. Look what they've done with my dog. They handled him so nicely. And the service there was amazing. Everything is so much better. We are marketed to, in a bad way, but we are marketed to very well across the board. And it can be very easy to forget about the objective. And that's what we need.
Yeah. I'm taking, you know, I've got a little bottle of vitamin D tablets, you know, in my bathroom cabinet, and I'm started popping one of them recently because I'm like, oh, the January blues, you know, I need more vitamin D. I'm not getting outside enough. And just the fact of like, I know myself when I take the vitamin D tablet after I've brushed my teeth in the morning before I go out to work, I'm like, I've got my sunlight fix now. Today's going to be a good day. It's the power of the mind. With turmeric, again, there's multiple things going on, and I'm not knocking it, but what I am saying, I think my take-home message for turmeric in dog joint supplements is it's not proven in the same way that it has been in humans. There may be a beneficial effect, but I think that effect is minuscule, and I think that actually once we commit to start doing something, we're often interpreting the results differently, or we're maybe committing to actually doing some other things in conjunction that may be having the real effect. So turmeric, I think would I was going to say would take with a pinch of salt. Take
a pinch of pepper.
Yeah. But
so there are people that are being very specific, and this is what I didn't really want to do, but somebody has put a comment about a specific Australian vet has done some research on dogs about the effects of golden paste. I haven't looked into these. Have you seen any actual studies about the golden paste?
How do I answer this diplomatically? I haven't seen any convincing evidence at the moment. I think and I don't know what study they're talking about or what vet they're talking about.
See if you can get hold of the study and let's look at it and see whether it's objective or subjective, the number of dogs in it.
I suspect I know. I suspect I know, but I'm not saying the next thing I'm going to say based on this vet or the study in question. But I think there's amongst the kind of more naturopathic and what they term holistic vets, which is the wrong use of the word, but amongst the more naturopathic or homeopathic kind of veterinary community, there's obviously a real desire to prove the things that you're going to prove. And of a lot of the studies that I look into that claim to be kind of science led do have a large element of bias in there. So just treat with caution if you know a certain community or a certain individual is trying to promote something that's completely different and unproven, and there's not a lot of evidence to support it yet. Just bear in mind that they may be being economical with the truth with their results, or they may be really overhyping the effect that they're maybe seeing in their particular study. So just be careful. The take home message is turmeric may have some turmeric. A compound in turmeric has an anti-inflammatory effect in humans with arthritis. That's not fully proven in dogs yet. So therefore, if you're just using turmeric as your joint supplement of choice, you're probably not spending your money as wisely as maybe choosing one of the more effective joint supplements.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the joint supplements now have glucosamine, chondroitin, omega-3 and turmeric.
Exactly. And that's what you have to realize, guys, is that when you start seeing that, you kind of think everybody's kind of a bit this, bit that, bit the other. Now, let's go back to simple Hannah brain, because when I started being about arthritis, this just causes a headache. It causes a headache in, in different areas, like the complementary therapies, what makes massage good? How can it be good? Is every therapist the same? What kind of length of intervention? Blah, blah, blah. The only answer in my head to this massive world of possibilities is be objective. Don't take everything as a promise. You have to find your pathway with your dog, and you can do it with the team that surrounds you. So you will see in the CAM shop, there is no therapeutic products, and there will never be, because we want to support you with education and lifestyle change and lifestyle tools. So yes, rugs, bowls, all of this sort of stuff, because the world of therapy that is non-regulated is really, really difficult. And I don't want to have our massive white coat effect happen to you, because somebody once said to me, Cam needs to make a supplement because you're killing. And I was like, that's against all of our ethics. Yes, we would make a killing, because all of you would believe that we would only put the most amazing stuff in there and it would definitely have to work. Well, it's not possible. It's never going to be possible, and it's never going to happen.
No, it's part of the picture. It's part of the management plan. It's not going to provide pain relief. It's not going to get the weight off your dog. It's not going to help your dog exercise or move in a way that, a hydrotherapist, physiotherapist can. It's only part of the picture. And I think
Yes.
as we're moving down this line of, the kind of proven and efficacious to the jury is out down into snake oil territory, which is way down the line we haven't even got to. Just be careful of what you're spending your money on or putting your belief in. Try and pool your resources to come up with a plan that's going to be as proven and as effective as possible. It might sound amazing to have devil's claw in your dog's joint supplement, but if you're spending a premium on the fact that this supplement has devil's claw in, but there's zero evidence that devil's claw is effective in dogs, then actually you're probably better climbing back up the ladder towards the evidence side and saying, I'm going to buy a good quality glucosamine and chondroitin supplement, because the chances are that's going to have a better effect for my dog than this fancy sounding thing with no proof.
Okay, so the person that's just asking about CBD, there's going to be more on CBD, not in this one, unless Sean wants to do it at a later date. We covered CBD with Stephen Sital a month back, so please go to our YouTube channel and you will find it in there. So we have a YouTube channel where you can find all of these lives, so go there and you'll find all the info, or scroll back through our Facebook videos and you will find it. Siobhan Menzies is just recorded, I think it's 4 video clips from me that we're going to release hopefully this month about CBD, so it will be covered. let's crack on because we need to cover ASU, type 2 collagen, Boswellia, which feature very heavily in a lot. Can we go there?
Yeah, yeah. What was the first one you said?
Let's do ASU, avocado and soybean unsaponifiables.
I will have to admit, I'm not overly familiar with the research behind them. From what I remember, I think the evidence is pretty weak that they're effective in dogs. The dog studies, as far as I remember, if I'm getting the compound right, the dog studies used very small numbers of dogs, and the methodology has come under quite a bit of criticism. So I've kind of not looked into it too much because from a kind of glancing level, I don't think there's much out there as yet on their benefit.
Okay, so we'll come back to that. There, I know that Daryl Millis only a few weeks ago said that they did a very, very small, more subjective than objective study comparing it to Carlton over at the University of Tennessee, and it would be one of his favoured. But what I'll do is I'll see a bit more about that at next step. What about type 2 collagen?
Yeah, so type 2 collagen and hyaluronic acid are kind of similar type compounds or similar type supplements. And hyaluronic acid and type 2 collagen are again sort of similar to the theory behind glucosamine and chondroitin. They're sort of providing building blocks or providing natural compounds that are vital for joint health. So collagen is a type of connective tissue or a compound that makes up connective tissue that gives it elasticity and shock absorption and things like that. And providing that, and then hyaluronic acid is a specific compound called glycosaminoglycan or GAG. And it's a component, an important component of joint fluid and giving the joint kind of mobility and ease and reducing friction in an arthritic joint as well. Now, the issue with these is that they do have beneficial effects, and the theory behind their medicinal use is quite good, and the evidence in their medicinal use is quite good, but on a mechanical basis, not a nutritional basis. So they've shown that if you're injecting hyaluronic acid specifically into a joint, then you do have beneficial effects in terms of that joint's function, lubrication and chondroprotective benefits. So protecting the diseased cartilage and diseased tissue in that joint. But actually giving it as a nutritional supplement has the same drawback as glucosamine and chondroitin because the body has to digest it, break it down, turn it into something different entirely, and then the theory is rebuild it then and provide the body with the building blocks to make it themselves. So actually, I don't think that I think the confusion arises with these two based on some of the kind of more mechanical or high intervention uses for them, as in injecting them into joints and using them as a mechanical therapy at the joint level, as opposed to feeding them to dogs and expecting that they're going to have the same effect. They will not have the same effect by feeding them to dogs.
I think that's really interesting because we use hyaluronic acid when we do intra-articular on occasion, not very often.
Yeah.
But you have pretty quick effects, but whether it stays or if it dissipates is another question.
It's at the site of action. If you're putting it directly at the site of action, and think of it as, a lubricating oil that the joint is lacking, putting it in there in its whole form is obviously going to have a quick effect because it's a fairly direct intervention. But giving it to the dog to eat and to digest and hope that it will get to the level of the joint. I think there was one study that said something like less than 5% of the original compounds make it back to the joint, something like that. Don't quote me on
I saw that, and it's kind of funny because somebody wrote that on a post once and said, well, I'd rather 5% than nothing. And I thought, well, 5% in the joint doesn't mean it makes any difference. And that's another thing. This is another marketing thing, guys, in that the company was like, yes, we can prove that 5% gets to the joint. Well, you still haven't proved that it made the joint any better. You didn't prove that the dog's pain state changed. You haven't proved that we've slowed the progression of the disease.
Yeah.
It's a very good way with words. And as I keep saying, Cam is trying to help you look after yourselves. Go down that road if you want to go down it, but don't suffer the placebo effect because of their marketing. Listen to this conversation. Go, I've got my wits about me. I'd still like to try it, but this time I'm going to go in equipped for it to work or not work, rather than going in thinking it will work, and then actually your dog's going, hello, anybody? Nothing's changed in my world. I still hurt. And
Yeah.
Cam about the dog. Own a second. It's about the dog. It's about the dog. It's about the dog. So,
and I'd say, you know, we can easily go down the route of, I tried this supplement, it didn't work. I tried this supplement, it didn't work. There's so many out there. You could spend a year trying every supplement on the market, but your dog is still lame and painful. You know, so don't go through the list of supplements available down. I'm describing a ladder here, aren't I? Like, don't go down through to the end of the ladder, the end of the line, before you kind of go to your vet and say, my dog's really uncomfortable, and now he's like wet himself because he couldn't get up, or now he's,
I know.
you know, can't jump in and out of the car anymore. And it's like, just really, I think, stick towards the top end of the ladder, or if you're going for some of the ones lower down, they maybe should be like in conjunction with some of the proven stuff. So we've got joint supplements out there, for example, with the next one to talk about, omega-3, glucosamine, chondroitin, and boswellia.
Yes, Boswellia. I haven't covered that.
Boswellia is an interesting one. So it's, if I'm right, it is made from the resin of the tree that produces frankincense. Yeah. So it sounds mythical and magical already, doesn't it?
It does. It comes with 3 kings and a baby.
Yeah. Given to baby Jesus as a gift, it must be wonderful.
Yes.
So Boswellia is an interesting one. I think the summary of that for me is, there's one study which was quite convincing, that used a fairly small sample of dogs, I think in the 20s, and
I think it's about that. Maybe even 17. It wasn't a high number.
Or there might have been 20 in the treatment group, but they did a placebo group and a treatment group. And I think it was 20 something either in the treatment group or 20 something overall. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it was fairly small sample size. And what they did was a double blind, placebo controlled one. So basically, they didn't tell the owner what supplement they were giving the dog. And it's quite a good study, and it does have some promising results for Boswellia and its effectiveness. They gave half of the group a placebo, which was just a pill that didn't actually do anything, maybe a water pill. And then they gave the other half the exact same looking pill, but it had Boswellia extract in it. And there's, I think, 2 compounds of interest in Boswellia that seem to have a kind of inflammatory modulating effect, or an anti-inflammatory effect at certain dosages. That's the other thing we'll come back to. And actually, in that study, sorry, battery's low. In that study, they did have quite convincing effects that there was a clinical improvement in the dogs given the Boswellia tablet, with tried to minimize any other changes across the groups. And what they found was, again, objective scoring. They did 2 objective scores. One was the pressure plate loading, and the other one was, I think, like using an accelerometer, so defining how, or measuring how much the dog was moving around. And I think on the pressure scores, where the dog was loading certain forces on those plates, those were improved after a number of weeks. I think it might have been 8 weeks or something. They did 4 and 8 weeks, and they were improved after 4 weeks on the Boswellia and after 8 weeks on the Boswellia. And the accelerometer scores of how much the dogs were moving around, I believe, were improved slightly on the 8-week scale, but they didn't quite, I think, again, don't quote me, I think it wasn't quite significant from an experimentation point of view, but could kind of, maybe it needs further research as to whether that was a real result. But what that says is, actually, there may be some benefit to Boswellia, but again, we're getting into really splitting hairs, and certainly not, and one study doesn't give us the whole picture. Certainly not on 24 dogs or 28 dogs or whatever it was.
And I think that's something Camphor has got to be really careful. This is now supporting the supplement companies that really are pushing for excellence, and there are some. There really, really are some. The same with some raw food companies. There's some companies that are really saying, I want to show the benefit of what we do. I don't want to hearsay and anecdote. Doing these studies is very difficult because arthritis is quite a complex disease. Many variables will affect. So you need to try and change nothing in that dog's life when you start an intervention. Nothing.
With 24 different owners.
24 different owners, and say to all of them, don't pet your dog more, don't walk anymore, don't go cuckoo, lovely, lovely, rubby anymore.
Don't excite your dog when you're giving them their tablet. This is going to make you so much better. And then your dog is really wagging and you're like, this pill makes him so much happier.
Exactly. These studies are really, really hard. And
unless we're putting dogs in laboratories, which we do not want to do, it's very difficult to say that study proved it, so therefore it's true.
Yeah, no, very. The last thing I want this to do is to kind of like alienate us from companies. We're just trying to be able to disseminate truth. And there are some really good companies that are tracing their products, putting batch numbers, making sure that the content is as good as it can be. But what's very difficult for them is as soon as they start seriously proving that their supplement works, and they're in a whole different category too. So there's this kind of minefield that we're living in, that we want to use these and the evidence can be a bit iffy. What I don't want is people to go away going, supplement companies all bad.
No, not at all. If my dog was arthritic and I was looking at this, there are several supplements on the market that I would be using in conjunction with weight control, exercise, physical therapy, interventions in the home to make it a more comfortable environment, all of the things that I would be doing. But my management strategy would include a supplement, and there's several on the market that I would rate as very good, and their ingredients they use are proven or suggestive that they will have a benefit. But they're part of the picture, they're not the whole picture.
No, exactly. Just something that I realised that I made a slight mistake with. When we were talking about type 2 collagen, there's a lot more claims about it being immunomodulating, in that you're trying to prevent the body attacking the cartilage. Supplements like that, is there any evidence of starting them very early and therefore having an impact on the inflammatory, process?
I don't know much to hand in terms of studies or compelling evidence on that. It's one of the ones that would be much further down my list of recommendations, because what I have read on it is the kind of the reputation it gets is probably benefiting from the direct effect of using it at the joint level rather than using it as a nutritional supplement.
Okay. Now we get into the really tricky bit where everybody's going, right, so what is that supplement? What is the supplement that you would use? And I leave it to your discretion, Sean. Cam will not be recommending any specific supplement. It's not what we're here for. If Sean chooses to say what he would use, that's absolutely him. Let it be known, none of us are getting paid for this. There is no links to any companies that are mentioned. We don't have any benefit whatsoever. Oh, and the lights go down. Is that going to get out?
There we go.
It's up to you. If you would like to say what you would do.
I said at the start, I'm not going to start naming products. I'm not going to start, saying this company does a better product than this company. That's not what I'm about. I work for a pet food company, and I'm not bringing the bias of promoting that here. I'm doing my Facebook Lives with Cam as Sean, the vet, who believes in evidence-based and is passionate about nutrition. I'm not promoting, the company that I work for's agenda in these. I'm doing them to help dog owners make right decisions. And every dog's an individual, every owner's an individual. There's multiple factors why one owner might choose one supplement over another. There's multiple factors why one supplement might work for one owner over another. So I don't give out blanket recommendations. I would just say, ask your vet which supplements they recommend. And if you're looking online for them, you want to look for, in the ladder of efficacy, omega-3 fatty acids, The key words being EPA and DHA, and of the type of omega fatty acids. It should probably be from a marine lipid source. Glucosamine and chondroitin, the evidence says there's probably some benefits there. So a mixed supplement with those 3 ingredients is better than maybe omega alone, but the jury's out. And then if you want to add a 4th ingredient to your mixed supplement, turmeric or boswellia, or maybe some of the other ones like hyaluronic acid or type 2 collagen, may be beneficial, but probably not. Most of the effect you're going to get is from the top 3 rather than the bottom.
What about MSM? Alison's been waiting patiently for us to talk about MSM.
Yeah, good question. The problem that I found with interpreting whether MSM is effective is the only reliable studies I know of assess the effect of MSM in conjunction with glucosamine and chondroitin. It didn't tease it apart as a single factor. So again, not harmful. Sort of, if I had to categorize them, seems to be in the same category in terms of its mode of action and things as chondroitin and glucosamine, and it normally comes in supplement form in conjunction with them. So I would say, don't be afraid of it. It may have benefits, but I haven't seen evidence of it being used alone and providing benefits.
Okay, no, that's good. There's a few people probably getting a bit irritated with us. There's one person, I'm not saying that you're being nasty irritated, but I think you need to just respect that this is a free of charge service, that we're trying to make sure that we equip you with information. I'm sorry that we're not going to give you a recommendation. Somebody talks about holistic vet. I totally do agree with this. I think holistic, if it's used in the right word, I think I feel what Sean has done today has actually been look at the evidence. I think if a holistic vet is then actually looking at the patient, looking for muscle trigger points, looking for weight shifting, looking for general poor health, hypothyroidism, poor nails, trimming the fur between their pads, encouraging an exercise plan. If you're talking about holistic vet in that way, I think really, really great, because we need more people that have that big global look at the dog. But I'm really pleased that Sean's taken his time to, as I say, do it as best he can, an unbiased approach. He doesn't offer a service where he's going to get any financial gain out of having done this. So I'd like to say thank you for doing this.
Thank you very much.
But we've still got time for our 10 top tips.
Oh.
So I'm going to start with number 10, because that means that you end with number 1. So number 10 for me is weight loss. I'm going to steal it from you, because I totally get frustrated with the amount of dogs that I see that are overweight, and people feel it's okay, they're just carrying a little bit of extra chub, they're nice and rounded as they're going into their older years. No. If we really want to get maximum benefit of all our other interventions, then please look at your dog's weight. Holly's Army is our community group, and the lovely Lindsay is doing visual body condition scores. So if you send your photos from above looking down, and from the side, directly above, directly side, into info@caninearthritis.co.uk. Lindsay will do a visual assessment and then just give you a little bit of guidance. Number 9.
Right, well, number 9 was going to be, for me, body condition scoring, learning how to do it. Instead, I would say, if you're struggling, if your weight loss program is not working, enlist the help of your veterinary team. Vet nurses will often be running weight clinics and things like that, and having that help and support and that regular check-in is actually a really, really good way to implement it if it's not quite working at home. And being honest, getting everyone in the family on side that there is a weight loss program in place, that will really help too.
Cool. And just to back that up there, just a little plug. We do a little CAM booklet about nutrition, and it's really handy to leave it lying around the house so that other members of the family read the same. And it's really difficult when you have a really caring owner come in and their grandma or their husband or their teenage son still keeps giving bits of toast, digestive biscuits, etc. So there's a book there to help you. Okay, number 8 for me is foot care. It's really sad when you see these dogs with really hairy feet, so the pads that offer little grip have no chance. And then you see these overgrown nails that are preventing a normal foot placement. Go and get the fur trimmed and the claws. Nurses listening to this, if you've got a dog on the table and you're doing some kind of procedure, take advantage of trimming up that fur and clip those nails. It's the right thing to do. Number 7.
Related to that, foot care is flooring and ramps and access. So a lot of dogs, a lot of homes now, have kind of laminated floors and tiles and things that dogs will slip on or find it very difficult to navigate on, especially if they have mobility issues. Similarly, steps up to a house or steps, jumping into a car in their daily life. All of these things can be very difficult and put a lot of pressure on joints. So just think about the physical environment and what modifications you can make. If it's your hallway has, a laminate floor going onto carpet, maybe having a carpet runner in your hallway that your dog can navigate quite easily and have more grip will help actually with their daily pain and daily mobility.
Yeah, and just a little addition, because Luna did it last night. I'm in a little holiday cottage for the winter, and I've had to put rugs around because it's laminate. She finds everywhere that there's not laminate to slip. You're like, oh, how could you find that small 1 foot square? Okay, so for me, the next thing would have to be the interactive feeders. I just think it's such an easy and pleasurable addition to any treatment plan. So your licky mats, the licky bowls that are out now are insane. You've got puzzle feeders, you've got snuffle mats. These things are generally safe, very safe. They're great fun to watch your dog have a good time. They delay feeding, they string it out a little bit. It's good for weight loss. And see it as a tool in your toolbox, so don't forget those things.
Yeah. For me, number 5 would be be mindful of the type of exercise and the duration of exercise that you're doing with your dog. So we all lead busy lives, and it can be sometimes very easy to kind of just give them a 10-minute walk around the block for a pee break before we go to work in the morning, and then maybe get them out for 20 or 30 minutes like at the end of the day, but some evenings miss it and just let them out in the garden. For a dog with kind of advanced arthritis, it's much better for them and for joint health to be doing regular low impact exercise as long as they're comfortable, to keep those joints moving, to keep those muscles active and provide muscle tone and muscle mass. A lot of the problems get worse if we say, oh, do you know what, my dog's old, he's got very thin, or he's got a bit wobbly, I'm going to stop exercising him altogether. And then they lose muscle condition and the body's natural ability to move and to keep those limbs working properly and to keep the joints moving, which encourages joint health, actually gets lost, and then the dog's in a much worse place. So try and take the advice of your vet, and if you are talking to a hydrotherapist, physiotherapist, if you're at that advanced stage, talk to them about an exercise plan of what is appropriate for your dog. But it's really important, I think, that we don't push them, once a week or twice a week to do lots of exercise because we kind of feel guilty that we haven't exercised them much throughout the rest of the week. That will actually really do damage to their joints and cause them pain. So regular, often, and low impact is much better than a big walk at the weekend.
Perfect. I'm going to add to yours with my number 4 is that home therapeutic exercise plans. Now, this is something that vets with maybe a physio in-house or a nurse interested in rehab can really help you with. Now, if you think about it, if you had a bad back, if you had a musculoskeletal condition yourself, the NHS or your private healthcare would encourage you to go and see a therapist. And generally, they would send you home with advice of activities to do or not to do. But they also might give you some stretches and some balances and some things to actually work on in between your sessions. And they're really, really effective. And unfortunately, at the moment, I don't think people really see the benefits because it's just available. You have to see a physio really to get a home therapeutic exercise plan. Powerful. So use these therapeutic exercises. They might be sits to stands, they might be core, they might be crawls, they might be weaves, but you can introduce them into your daily exercise. So it's not a bind to you. So speak to vets, see if there's a physio they recommend, and look at seeing if you can get some exercise tailored for your dog. Number 3.
Number 3 for me is don't be afraid of medications. So we've talked all tonight about nutraceuticals, but pharmaceuticals really do play a role too. And vets aren't recommending pharmaceuticals because, we want to throw drugs at a problem, or that's the only way we've been taught, or we want to make profit on drugs. Believe it or not, we don't make much profit on drugs. We often get criticized for the price of drugs, but we buy them at a certain price and there has to be a little bit of markup on them, but we're not making a lot of money on drugs. We're giving drugs because we feel that dog, to use the arthritic example, that dog needs them, that dog's in pain or discomfort on that process, and that the drugs will help maybe in the short term. But work with your vet to talk about your concerns if you do have them around drugs, around side effects. There's amazing drugs out there that can manage chronic pain now that have very, very few side effects. So if you heard a horror story from 10 years ago, that's not necessarily going to happen nowadays. Just talk to your vet about your concerns around medications and maybe come up with a drug treatment regime that works for you and your dog to keep them pain-free.
And on that note, Louise Clark is joining us on Thursday. Oh, I know. She is going to be amazing. So there's not many pain specialists, like proper specialists, but she is not only a European diploma holder, which is pretty damn high, she's also got an MSc in pain management, pathophysiology, blah, blah, blah. So she is going to be awesome. She's on Thursday. Number 2 for me, and it's a new one, so Cam followers and Cam ambassadors, wait for it. There are other members of the multidisciplinary team, behaviourists, groomers, dog walkers. They all play a role. And as a vet that now does nothing but arthritis, I often see cases that are not being managed optimally because the dog still chases the postman, still jumps up at the window repeatedly, still runs down the garden after the squirrel or the cat again and again and again. And I'm asking that person to be, modify their exercise, less impact, and then the dog is bouncing up and down at the letterbox or bouncing up and down at the back door when the owner comes home. That needs to be challenged because it's going to aggravate the condition. If you are really good at managing your condition, and the dog walker 3 times a week takes your dog out with 6 other dogs of much greater capability, and your dog is really aroused and trying to keep up and trying to stay with the pack, and then they come back and they're like, oh, that really hurt. So consider the bigger picture. Number 1.
Number 1 for me, I don't want to end on a sad note, but I think realizing that arthritis is a condition largely of older or aging dogs, and often we're talking about maintaining quality of life, but we need to realize that it's a journey, and the end point of that journey is either us making a difficult decision around the dog's quality of life with the veterinary team, or something else happening. But the dog, unfortunately, your pet dog is going to have an end of life discussion that needs to be had. And I think preparing, if your dog is in the later stages, preparing for that earlier the better, and talking to your vet about arrangements or decision making. There's some great tools out there that will score objectively the quality of life of your dog. So there's some questionnaires available online. I'm not sure if you've linked to them, Hannah, on Cam, but they'll basically, you can answer a range of questions about your dog's daily life. And you could do it, every 2 weeks or every month. And basically it'll give you a score of how your dog is coping day to day with their pain or with their, other health conditions alongside arthritis, and how they're really doing in terms of quality of life. But it's really hard. We get so emotional and we're so attached to our pets. It's really hard to think about the kind of end stages or the later life issues, but actually being prepared for that and kind of facing up to it at an earlier stage and starting to really think about, is my dog enjoying their life? What interventions could I do to improve the quality of life score depending on what their individual lifestyle is like? And if you're fearful or you think your dog is approaching a time where you're going to need to make a decision on putting them to sleep, for example, talk to your veterinary team about it. They're more than happy to allay your fears and to talk you through the process and to talk to you about how to make the decision and when to make that decision when the time comes. don't be fearful of it, and don't put it off, and kind of, you know, bury your head in the sand, because it's much better to be prepared for that endpoint. And that
Yeah,
kind of
and
work.
the lovely Holly's Army. So all of you that are on Holly's Army, thank you so much, because you're so kind to each other. And the lovely ambassadors, who are a group of people that give up their time to oversee Holly's Army and protect you all and guide you. So thank you for making that service happen. Oh my God, you're going for at least 1 hour 45. You deserve a beer.
I know. I think there's a glass of wine in my near future.
Me too. Thank you, Sean. It's been amazing. It's been better than amazing. And I hope that everybody that's watched this has gained something. We haven't tried to diss anybody. We haven't tried to optimize anybody. It's just been very factual. This is what information is available currently. And I hope it has given some help to you. So
yeah.
I will see you Thursday with the lovely Louise. Until then, I would love you to say loads and loads of thank yous to the amazing Sean, because he is wonderful.
Thank you, guys.
See you later.
Bye.